Hello everybody, this is Havoc, and Total War has just released an article going a quick word on our historical titles. The link for this will obviously be down in the description below, but basically what they did is they came out and kind of talked about some of the confusion on people expecting a historical title on last week's announcement and instead getting Warhammer 2. So I'm going to read what the article says and then give some sort of speculations kind of a deal here, as well as just give my opinion on the matter, which I have stated before in previous videos, but since Total War has come out with an article specifically about the historical titles, I thought I would go ahead and cover it. We've had many questions on when our next historical title is going to be available, so we thought we'd try and clear up any confusion and give you some information on what our historical teams have been up to these past few months. We've already spoken a bit about our next historical tentpole. Wanting to clarify, we're looking for a number of ways to bring a variety of historical content out over the coming months and years rather than focusing on one singular project. That's not to say these projects are a distraction to the tentpole's development, with historical sub-teams split out exactly as historical and Warhammer teams are. So basically they just want to say, hey, we've mentioned this several times before, but we are working on a historical title, but we are also working on some smaller, basically some DLCs to kind of fill in the gaps, not as a distraction away from, you know, not to say they're pulling people from the main team, but they have teams specifically for these kind of sub titles here. Specifically, we've been recently looking at ways in which we might get back to historical content before we release the next major historical Total War. In particular, thinking about additional content or standalones for some of our more recent historical titles. Jack Lusted, with veteran team members from Rome 2 and Attila, formed a new Total War team to investigate further. We're excited to share news on the information as soon as we're able. So that's basically what it is. What I just said before. It's important to note that while our developers can switch between projects based on workloads, our historical and fantasy teams are separate and managed separately, meaning whether it's a historical or fantasy project, we can give each title the attention it requires. So that's one thing I think is a little bit of a confusion, is that people are assuming that since Warhammer 2 just got announced right after Warhammer 1 released, that they aren't working on a historical title, because how can they when they're working full bore on Warhammer 2? These guys, his creative assembly has completely separate teams. People are working on Warhammer and Warhammer only. There is a separate entire team, I'm sure just as staffed as the Warhammer team, that is working on the historical project. Two separate teams, ladies and gentlemen, not one big team mixing and matching where they can. Two completely separate teams. Production on our next historical major release is well underway, as mentioned before, with the team working on all areas of the game at this stage. The game design is locked and asset creation fully underway. They've seen some jaw-dropping character and campaign map concepts that have really pushed the strong visual design of this release. They've also been collaborating with their first historical advisor, preeminent in his field, and already bringing that world-leading expertise to bear on our designs and extensive research so far. And then don't forget, it's an area that we haven't tackled yet, so we want to make sure we get it right. So that's just further confirmation that they are working on it. I mean, they are full bore into it. They brought in their historical advisor. He's already working on making sure that this is historically accurate and really bringing it to the Total War franchise. The game remains a strong focus on character design that we have pursued in previous major releases, with key personalities of the period in particular being an early priority. There are vibrant and striking renders plastered all over the studio, eye-catching combat animations garnering some serious attention too. Same thing, they've literally, that paragraph is a copy and paste from their where they're at thing. So of course none of the above mentioned projects are ready to be shown off, and we don't want to give away too much info, still wanted to keep you updated. While we build to a stage we're ready to talk about future plans, you can keep an eye on social media channels, yada yada blah blah blah, and then what the teams are working on post, that's where they're pulling from, which is linked into this article, and then they advise you to sign up for Total War Access because they'll show off content, wallpapers, concept art, things of that nature. So basically what I'm wanting to do today along with that is just reiterate that they are working on a historical title. They're doing Warhammer 2 because Warhammer 1 was so successful. I'm really not surprised and wasn't surprised that Warhammer 2 was announced before the next historical title. And while people can be pissed off and upset about that, I think them working on Warhammer in general is going to make the historical title that much stronger. The next major one, I'm going to say. So we're talking about the major historical title here. They are pushing the limits as far and further than they ever thought they could, making Warhammer. They brought mechanics that are unique to, I mean, just fantasy in general, but we've seen mechanics in Warhammer that we haven't seen before, flying units, which could lead to future historical things, just a whole bunch of different things that has had to push the limit of Total War and Creative Assembly's abilities thus far. And it's not like the things that they've done in Warhammer will stay in just Warhammer. I think that they have learned a lot, they've innovated a lot, and I think that is going, it has to spill over into the historical title. So while, again, people can be upset, they are working on a historical title. They have a team fully developed for it. They are going as hard as they can, but I think they're also trying to make sure that this historical, the main historical title, is as polished and is as innovative as Warhammer is. Now, I'm not saying, I mean, Warhammer has issues, so it's not like polished, but I mean, compared to like Rome 2's release, yeah, how about that? So I think they're really trying to make the historical title, since it's going to be probably another year, making it that much more significant and just have that wow factor, innovative, striking art, striking character design, really putting some polish, because they don't have, they have pressure to release it, but it's not as much because they have Warhammer to kind of fill in the gaps a little bit. Now, switching focus, as they've mentioned, as they said in the third paragraph, they've got team members from Rome 2 and Attila that have formed a new Total War team to kind of bring some additional content. So as I've said in other videos, we might even see all the way back to Rome 2. I doubt Shogun 2, because that's really far back, and there's a lot of mechanics that they haven't implemented in Shogun 2 that may have been seen in Rome 2 or Attila. But we may be seeing DLC for sure for Attila, possibly Rome 2, which would be really cool. Now, what it's going to be, I don't know. We can speculate. It's going to be obviously not major releases. They're going to be standalone. So like Shogun 2's Fall of the Samurai is technically a standalone. Napoleon is technically a standalone. So either additional content for Attila, or a mini campaign for Attila or Rome 2, or, as we said, a standalone. There's a lot of things that they can do with this. If you're going to make it kind of like Attila, and you want to keep kind of to the Attila time frame, they've already covered Age of Charlemagne, but one thing they haven't covered is the Age of Vikings. So making a standalone title, not a mini campaign, but a standalone title for the Age of Vikings. And the reason why I mention Age of Vikings is because if it's a standalone, they can still use the main campaign map, but maybe condense it a little bit. Not make it so extensive, because the Vikings, I mean, the Vikings were trading with the Middle East, so you can't like exclude. And the Vikings raided, you know, they raided into the lands owned by the Eastern Roman Empire. They raided lands into southern Spain. I mean, these guys were everywhere, so it makes sense if there is a standalone title that would fit, because they can do more than just a micro map like they did for Age of Charlemagne. So that's something they could do. They could go even more pre-medieval, or right up to the medieval time period. They can go a lot of places with this, and I'm really excited. For Rome 2, they can maybe bring back an Alexander campaign, which they did in Rome 1, which I think would be really awesome, having the game mechanics and the graphics of Rome 2 put into an Alexander time period. Even just redoing the Alexander campaign from Rome 1 would be pretty cool. There's a lot of places that they can go with this, and I'm excited to see what content they put in here to keep us entertained until the main historical title. So I also want to reiterate that this team that is working on this additional content is not working on the major release as well. So it's not like this team of dedicated individuals, this Black Ops team per se, is split between working on this additional content and a historical title. No, this is a separate team dedicated to additional content. So I want to emphasize that it's not like they're splitting teams just to try and make us happy. They formed this team specially to make us happy. But guys, that's really what I want to get the point across. They're working on a historical title. They're getting stuff done, whether you agree with it, whether you're disappointed, whether you're excited for Warhammer or not. We will see something historical. I guarantee you we'll see something this year in terms of content. Now, content for additional content, not the main historical title. We may see a title or a trailer for the historical title this fall, maybe-ish. We'll see fall or winter. You know, I'm really excited to see what they do to basically kind of keep us happy, to keep us entertained historically for those hardcore historical titles, and to really just see where they can go and be innovative. So that's about it, guys. It wasn't really quick. It's actually pretty long. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Haven't already hit that subscribe button. Follow me on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. In the comment section down below, leave your ideas on what you think would make a befitting extra content or a standalone title for Rome 2 or Attila. Let's just get those creative juices flowing and see what we can't come up with. All right, guys, that's it. This is Havoc, and I'm out of here. Peace!